Hey LinkedIn, and welcome to Business Unusual, a daily live show from the LinkedIn news team where we talk about the changing nature of work. I'm Callie Schweitzer, a senior editor here at LinkedIn, where I cover the marketing industry. The pandemic has changed our lives in so many ways, including our everyday behaviors. As a result, brands have had to shift how they talk to and market to companies. I'm thrilled to be joined today by two guests who will talk about how companies have responded to shopper shifts and marketing overhauls. First, we'll be talking with Janie Whiteside, Chief Customer Officer at Walmart, about how the retailer that reaches 90% of Americans pivoted in light of the pandemic. We'll also hear some of Janie's leadership advice and hear about Walmart's newest initiatives. Later on, we're going to be talking with Scott Galloway, New York Times bestselling author and NYU marketing professor, about how brands and academia have been responding to how the world is changing, including leaders who are getting it right, social media boycotts, and more. But before we bring on our guests, we want to hear from you. I want to start by shouting out to Chris from Omaha, Mir from Toronto, Juan from Argentina, Duncan from Seattle, and Stacy from Missouri. Thanks so much for joining us. As you guys join and talk, please leave your comments and questions in the stream. We'll be sure to take a look at them. And with that, let's bring on Janie. Janie, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Callie. Nice to see you.
You too. So I want to start by asking you a bit about your role. You're Walmart's Chief Customer Officer, the first, and your purview is really large, everything from marketing to customer care. Tell us more about what that means.
Yeah, so the purview is wide, but it's really with the intention of creating a mechanism for us to help the organization put the customer at the center of everything that we do. We know that knowing more about your customer allows you to more accurately predict where they're going and create the right series of priorities that you need to solve on their behalf. So the team connects touch points, everything from insights, voice of the customer, customer service, our physical and digital products, whether those are in support of our customers, like the website and the app and developments there, to the digital and physical products we put in place to support our associates in the store, whether that's online pickup and delivery or the technology they use there. Our marketing group, the Walmart Media Group, our customer innovation teams, and our services businesses, so financial, retail, and the services in and around the store. By putting all of that together on behalf of the customer and supporting it by the humanity that comes through, our 1.5 million associates in the US, we really feel that that allows us to be able to focus on what we need to do and how we serve our customer day in and day out.
Let's talk about the shifts in retail trends that you've seen in light of the pandemic. What kind of growth have you seen?
Look, we've seen a lot, right? We have been open throughout all of this. And, we talked a lot about the fact that at the beginning, things were shifting almost daily as people went through different patterns of what they were buying, which I'm sure mirrors everybody that was on today. First of all, there was sort of the panic buying of food and consumables and toilet paper and, kitchen paper, et cetera. And then that sort of parlayed into things to do at home, and then grooming products, and then home improvement and healthcare and all of those other things. But perhaps more importantly, I think, is that we saw that customers, just like our associates, really wanted to feel safe. And if they were out and needing to go and buy those essentials, then they wanted to figure out ways to be able to do that, which required us to do things like, rapidly launch contactless payment mechanisms so they could get in and out of the store, without touching as much as possible. We saw fewer trips and bigger baskets as people were shopping, and we needed to accommodate that. We've seen increased adoption of curbside pickup and a home delivery, not just in terms of customers doing more of it, but in terms of the segments, and so one of the fastest growing segments to actually get online pickup and delivery are the 55 plus age group. So we're seeing an expansion of that. And we know that people are juggling multiple roles now. They're at home and they can be kids and parents, and they're working from home. They might be looking after others in the home. And so convenience matters more than ever, which caused us to rush to launch an express delivery service so that we could get things to you in 2 hours or less, and bring our two apps together so that we are unifying the experience. So it's really about safety and convenience at this point in time.
Great to hear about. Some breaking news out this morning from Walmart, which is that you have just become the largest company to require face masks in all 5,000 stores. Can you tell us a little bit more about that announcement?
Yeah, look, I think it's pretty simple. It's the most simplest and safest way that we can make sure that we are focusing on keeping both our customers and our associates healthy. And no more than that. And I mentioned before, we continually hear the desire, to want to make sure that we're giving the healthiest choices to customers. And this is a way to do that, while at the same time ensuring that we focus on our priority of keeping our associates safe as well.
You mentioned Walmart Media Group earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Walmart Media Group is a really interesting part of our business, I think, and I'm super excited about it. So think about it as the advertising arm of our business. We've got the opportunity to help brands reach customers at the right time and place by delivering really super relevant content that we believe is additive or is accretive to the customer's shopping experience. That means we're not in the business of just sort of slapping ads all over the website and the app and beyond that have nothing to do with the customer shopping experience. And so we're working really hard with our suppliers to make sure their ads are in the right place and are reaching customers at the right time when it makes sense to the journey. And for that customer, that makes sure that you're seeing the right ad at the right time. So for somebody like me, I don't need to see ads for diapers because my kids are older. I haven't bought diapers for many, many years, but I do want to see ads for other things that might be additive or helpful as I'm going through my shopping experience. Walmart Media Group, if you think about it, is really the bridge between our 160 million customers and our brands. And as an advertiser, I really think that Walmart can give you unparalleled reach in terms of the customers that we have on our assets every day, as well as being able to really give you really strong results in terms of the adverts you've got. Earlier this year, the Media Group also launched Walmart Advertising Partners program, which I'm really proud of because it creates more transparency and easier access to sponsored products, as well as continuing to help us innovate on our ad tech solutions and provide more reporting and be more accountable to on-demand access for advertisers. So we've got a lot happening in this space, and we're really excited about this being a really interesting bridge to be able to bring great additional solutions to our customers and help solve ways of reaching those customers for our suppliers.
If you're just joining us, I'm Callie Schweitzer, and we're here with Janie Whiteside, Chief Customer Officer at Walmart, about how the company is responding to changes in light of the pandemic. We've had some more people join us from the stream: Madeline from Colorado, Marianne from Atlanta, Bill from Grand Rapids, Sandy from Chicago. We have a few comments for you, Janie, which is that David says Walmart requiring masks is a very smart decision. Ben wants to thank you for sharing your thoughts on buying patterns, which affect supply chains and many other critical parts of the business. So now, turning back to Walmart, it has been reported that Walmart is planning to launch a subscription product called Walmart Plus at the end of this month. Can you comment on that? Any breaking news you want to share?
I'm not going to share anything today, and we don't have anything to share just quite yet, but I will be very excited to share things with you when I can. So keep checking and more to come.
Great. So I want to talk about leadership, which is something that I know is incredibly important to you. In an article on LinkedIn about leadership in a crisis, you wrote, "How do we adapt? How do we lead when chaos comes knocking? When we don't know where to start? When we are uncertain of the next steps? How do we do those things? And how has this moment changed the way you're thinking of yourself as a leader and how you practice leadership?"
That's a great question. So look, I think we're all as leaders thinking about this a lot. And I think that we can all agree that standing up and being a leader for our teams is probably more important now than ever. Amid all the external chaos, our goal is to create a vision for the future, even when that future, for many people, seems to be pretty uncertain. And there isn't a roadmap on how to do it right. Every team needs to do something different. And it's up to the leader to really identify those challenges, I think, and where those opportunities for growth are. I worked for many years at American Express under the leadership of Ken Chenault, and he used to talk consistently of this notion about defining reality and giving hope. And I come back to that a lot in terms of the leader's role. Define reality, be clear on what's going on, but also make sure that you're giving hope in terms of how we're going to be able to get through this, and what the future is going to look like. I think there are a few things for me that I think are critically important. So the first is you need to make decisions. You need to make them quickly, but you need to make sure that you're not making those decisions so quickly that you don't lose track of the bigger picture. It's easy to fall into the trap of analysis paralysis, particularly when you're faced with all this uncertainty. We must make decisions with speed, but never lose sight of what our aim is. And at Walmart, our aim is taking care of our customers day in and day out. And so if you remain focused on that, it's easy to make decisions as a follow through. Look, there's going to be unexpected roadblocks. We get them, it seems like every day, if not every hour right now. So encourage your teams to be creative with solutions to break through those. We're going to start to see new opportunities that we didn't see before. I think promoting an agile team that can pivot and can roll with those changes and see those as empowering is important. But it's really important we also don't get stuck in crisis mode and we're just running from one crisis to another. So thinking through how you sort of inculcate pivoting and your ability to be agile is important. And the reality is we're facing different challenges to those than we did prior to the crisis. These challenges will shift from being process-oriented to people-oriented, and the importance of building emotional connections, I think, is vital to a healthy team. We need to start to begin to, really connect on an emotional level with our teams, and that's been interesting, right? We talk a lot in our team about being physically distant but more emotionally connected than ever. And I personally love it when somebody's dog comes into the frame, or I get to see somebody's kid, or we do a little virtual tour of where people's offices are, and we sort of move around. And I think maintaining that emotional connection while we're not able to physically connect is really critically important for leaders of teams, but also teams in totality too.
A member question. Allison wants to know how you manage to stand so much up without burning out your teams. How do you strike that balance?
It's a great question. I think it's a couple of things. One is, like I said, making sure that we are very focused on what the priorities are, and we need to be ruthless in terms of that prioritization. That requires us to say no to a lot of things, and it's not that they're bad ideas, it's just that we need to keep the teams focused, keep them focused on, we have teams, real sort of SWAT teams working on individual projects. They run as fast as they can. We empower them as fast as we can. And, at a leadership level, we keep incredibly connected, and we make sure that everybody understands what everybody else is doing. And, the second part of this is it's really important, as I said, to keep that connection with the team. Make sure you understand how people are feeling, how things are affecting them, how that's impacting them, and keep a watch on each other.
Adalik from the stream asks, she says, great conversation. How are you thinking about diversity in product offerings? Lots of great Black and brown companies lack access to broad market access, thus limiting their growth trajectory.
So look, for us, having a diverse supplier base is incredibly important, making sure that we have the right product set for our customers, no matter what their ethnicity or gender or background, is also incredibly important. And so we're very committed to doing that. We continue to be committed to doing that. For our customer organization, personally, it's critically important that we as a group represent our customer base and that we tell the stories and we put the products and services together that represent our customer base. And so we are taking a good hard look to make sure not just that the team represents America and our customer, but that we have the right people at the table making decisions that are relevant and giving us the right points of view. And so we're taking a look at everything that we're doing. And I'm super proud to be able to work for a company that is committed so much to listening and learning and sharing and making sure that we are leaning into our role to help on both racial and social equality.
Minnie from the stream says, transparency, quick decision-making, agility to pivot, and emotional connections, with a clap hand emoji. So I want to finish up by asking you about any productivity tips or secrets that you have. We have heard about your massive purview. How do you make it all work?
I think, so somebody once told me at the beginning of this, you need to go do an outside meeting and that will kind of nurture you. I've been really bad at doing those because I get distracted. Like I said, I think it's about ruthless prioritization. It's about figuring out the areas where you can add the most value, focusing on those and getting out of the way. other things. What this has certainly taught our team is there's a lot of conversations that we all need to be in. There's also a lot of conversations that we don't need to be in. So focus on the areas where you think you can add the most value and do those, because there's just too much going on to be in every conversation, and let other people make decisions and empower them to do so. There is no decision worse than no decision. So let people go.
Love that. No decision worse than no decision. Janie, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're just joining us here, this is Business Unusual, and I was just joined by Janie Whiteside, Chief Customer Officer at Walmart. I want to say hi to Tara from New York City, Cody from Ohio, Austin from Florida, and Philip from the UK, and Hiroko from Tokyo. So next, joining me is Scott Galloway, NYU marketing professor and New York Times bestselling author, who will be talking with me about how academia and brands are thinking about the future. And let's read some more comments from the stream. All right, it looks like people are saying great conversation. So thanks so much for being here with us. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Callie. Good to be with you.
So I wanted to start by talking about brand responses to the pandemic. In the last few months, we've seen a recession, a pandemic, civil unrest. Who do you think has stood out as doing it well? Who's responding well to this?
Well, it's a difficult question to ask, because it's a challenge to respond when you have a federal mandate to close. So I think Walmart and Amazon have done a great job. I think they've demonstrated how important they are to America. I would argue they've almost become too big to fail, because if you had, the grocery delivery and the supply chain for Amazon and Walmart became just so incredibly important. I think there was a moment in the pandemic where if Walmart and Amazon had announced that they were closing their factories, or their distribution centers, and the supply chain for food had been interrupted, I think that's when you could have seen real social chaos. So I think Amazon and Walmart did an amazing job. They're also the huge beneficiaries of massive stimulus and the closure of 98% of their competition. So a lot of the trillions of dollars in stimulus could have been well labeled the Amazon and Walmart Shareholder Act. But I think they responded to the challenge, and they were very strong. In terms of, I think we've seen an evolution in terms of branding around the Black Lives Matter. I think initially it was a bunch of squares with serif type, and people decided that just didn't mean a whole lot, and were more interested in the actions they were taking. And I think the companies that have responded well are the ones that have committed to actual change at the board level and the employee level. So anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, Callie.
It does. And that brings us to the Facebook boycott, which is something that a lot of companies and brands have joined as they have pushed back against Facebook and the Stop Hate for Profit campaign to urge Facebook to change their hate speech policies. Do you think this is going to work? Is Facebook going to make changes?
No, Facebook will offer some illusory, they'll say they need to do better, and they'll offer, I think the most recent one is they're saying that they're going to potentially stop taking political ads a few days before the election. But Facebook, even with this boycott, and by the way, I think this boycott has had more impact than a lot of actions recently, and the people who organized the boycott and have driven it deserve a lot of kudos for having an impact. Having said that, Facebook has 8 million advertisers. And so it's like that the Terminator in Terminator 2 and 3, when he has his arm cut off, it kind of reemerges. It's probably the most elastic, robust advertising base in the history of modern business. So it'll be continued delay, obfuscation, continued bullshit, continued look over here, we're going to do something, and they will continue to weaponize their platform for elections, depress teens, and tear our society apart.
I know you have very strong feelings on that. I want to bring in two questions from the stream. Dave asks, do you see stores closing in the future and doing home delivery only?
Oh, sure. It's already happened. If you think about my favorite piece of data coming out of this is e-commerce as a percentage of retail has roughly increased 1% a year. So we're at kind of 0 in 2000, and by 2020 we were at 18, increasing 1% a year. And then in 8 weeks, starting March 15th, it jumped from 18% to 28%. So we've had a decade of progress in e-commerce in 8 weeks. And you're seeing that across all industries. I think something I'm doing with companies is take the three most interesting trends in your industry and take them out 10 years, and that's where we are. The mix of stores to e-commerce has just leapt forward 10 years. And for the last 10 years, we've been saying that America was overstored, and it isn't. We have anywhere between 2 and 5 times the percentage or the amount of square foot per capita of stores. And so we're going to see probably 25,000 stores close. So stores will still remain an important part of a multi-channel experience. You had Janie on before. I think Walmart's kind of super weapon or their superpower is their stores, and they've done a great job, as has Best Buy, as has LVMH, realizing that great brick and mortar is still a key advantage. Just the ratio and the sheer number is just out of whack. So we're going to see probably 25,000 stores close, and we're going to see the ratio go from 1882 to probably 3070 in just the next 6 months.
So Lorenz is clearly familiar with your work because he asks, do you think apparel retailers should look closer at subscription Rundle opportunities? I don't need 6 to 8 Nikes a year, or do I? And Scott, would you also introduce everyone to Rundle if they don't know what it is?
So Rundle is a term that I think I invented that kind of makes no sense. It's a bad word. Recurring revenue bundle. So Walmart Plus is a recurring revenue bundle. Amazon Prime is a recurring revenue bundle. Restoration Hardware membership program is more recurring revenue. Netflix is recurring revenue. But the idea is, as a species, we're terrible estimating time, and some time goes faster than we anticipate. So when you join Equinox for $250 a month, you think, well, I work out 4 times a week. That's 16 into 250. That's $15 a workout. No, you don't. You work out once a week, and so you're paying 60 or $70 per workout. But to go to a recurring revenue, sort of monogamous relationship with a consumer, takes your business model to an entirely different, takes your business to a different construct. And companies that are in the recurring revenue business are valued at a multiple of revenues versus a multiple of EBITDA for transactional stores. So Apple has doubled its stock price without any meaningful increase in earnings. And the reason it's been recast is the fastest growing part of its business is recurring revenue, which now constitutes 23% of its revenue. So the most accretive thing any $10 billion plus company can do, including Walmart, and I worked with them on this a couple years ago, is the fastest growing part of any company over $1 billion needs to be a recurring revenue business. That is the best way to create shareholder returns right now, is to get out of the serial dating of trying to reinvent your business every day and be attractive to consumers and convince them to come in. That's serial dating. You want to move to a monogamous relationship where they agree to pay you a certain amount over a fixed time so that you can predict your cash flows, your CapEx, and also consumers are terrible at estimating time. But so I'm on the board of Urban Outfitters. We have something called Newly, which is our recurring revenue subscription program. But I think this is where the future's at. And there's going to be a lot of subscriptions. It's difficult. It's expensive. It requires a lot of capital up front. But I absolutely think that's where the future of retail and consumer businesses lies.
Scott, you have a lot of fans in the stream. Barbara says, hi, Scott Galloway. I'm a huge fan of yours. Love the 4, and I'm a loyal listener to your Pivot podcast with Kara Swisher and your new Prof G Show podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your candid insights. Another question from the members that I want to ask. Cody asks, what do you think is the future for social media marketing in small businesses?
It's really powerful. Facebook has a Facebook is a monopoly. Facebook is run by a sociopath and his beard. But having said that, the product is incredible. The ad tools are incredible. If you're a small business, I would say spend more money on Facebook because you don't have any choice. It's an incredibly strong platform. It's easy. It would easy be for me to be a purist and say get off the platform. But the reality is the reason it's a monopoly, the reason it dominates social media, the reason it has 3.5 billion people on it every month, the reason 1.5 billion of them are on the platform every day, is that the tools and the targeting and the lookalike audiences, and it's incredibly powerful for small business. Yeah, I think you need to be, depending, it's situational, depending upon the brand and the category, but generally speaking, in beauty and luxury, it's been, for small companies, it's been a combination of Instagram and Amazon or capital light distribution. But in terms of marketing for small businesses, Facebook and Google continue to warrant the 60 cents on the dollar that they garner, and that's probably going to 70 or 80 after the pandemic, as a lot of the smaller media companies, agencies, and platforms begin to wane.
Another question from the stream, Raul asks, what is an appropriate metric beyond creating D&I positions and committees to determine whether ESG efforts around social justice issues are effective and sustainable beyond this moment in time?
Wow, we're going to need a bigger boat. I think that's a tough one. I can tell you that what I'm focused on is I think as a species, we're tribal, and we're more inclined to form relationships with bonds with people who look, smell, and feel like us. And so it's important that if you're on a board and if you're in a leadership position, I think it starts at the top. The board picks the CEO picks executive management team, and executives make between 30 and 200 times more than the population. And I think that the key to more racial justice, if you will, is the economic empowerment of different communities. Latino and Black households have an average net worth of 23,000. Average white households have 150,000. So the way we, I think, attack that economic apartheid is to go after and to demand more diversity at boards, which will result in more diverse CEOs, which will result in more diverse senior management teams, which will result in more economic empowerment and equity. So I think everybody just has to pick their place. Where I pick my place is I'm committed to trying to put more people of color on corporate boards, because I think it kind of all starts there. Corporate boards are generally a bunch of white people with outdoor plumbing, and wouldn't you know, the CEO is always the dude, and the dude picks a bunch of other dudes to run the company and garner the majority of the fruit. So I think it starts, at least what I'm trying to do is it starts for me at the board level.
In a virtual world, where will customer engagement come from? Richard asks.
Well, customer engagement, I'm not sure. You can engage people online. I think of stores, if you will. I mean, it depends what you mean by customer engagement. I think people will still go into stores, but they'll go into stores for people, not products. I was really thrilled to hear that Walmart is demanding masking. I think that's a point of engagement and citizenship. But and I mean, your online experience is more about utility. It's more about search and destroy. I would say, I guess, true consumer engagement probably involves an individual. Maybe it's moving. You know what? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know how to answer that. I apologize. I don't know.
I feel like I rarely see you stumped. I want to ask you about your book, The Algebra of Happiness. Tell us a little bit about it and what inspired you to write it.
Thanks for that. So I wrote a book on tech called The Four, and I wanted to, the last session of every class I teach, I'm teaching 400 kids in the fall, is I wrote down a series of equations to try and distill down a lot of research I've done on happiness and personal experience. I think being happy and leading a rewarding life is a competence. I think it's something you have to work on. The motivation for me was my blessings are this, and my mood is often this. I'm pissed off and angry most of the time, and I decided I was going to work on that and try and get my mood to foot to my blessings, and wrote a book where I go through a series of algorithms on best practices around trying to lead a rewarding, satisfying life. So it's been a great personal journey, and it's just a function of looking through the research and distilling it down to about 8 or 10 algorithms for best practice, and committing to being really good at being happy and taking stock of your blessings.
Love that. So Scott, I want to end by asking you about your predictions. You are very well known for oftentimes being very right, including and saying that Twitter would have some kind of subscription product in the future. And then they posted a job description hiring for an engineer for a subscription product. Do you have any predictions that you can share with us that you have not shared elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I can go meta or small. Meta, the baton of global leadership has been passed from the US to China. We have demonstrated an extraordinary level of arrogance and incompetence. And so if you took the line of global leadership out 10 years, you would have said China would surpass the US. It's happened in the last 60 days. And then you can go way down to specific companies. I think Netflix is going to report record earnings on Thursday or tomorrow, you have a company right now that is, imagine, I don't think I've ever seen this in the history of business, where you have record sales. Your sales are off the charts, but your costs have plummeted because of all your production has been shut down. I've just never seen that in the history of business. It's as if Walmart announced our business is up 40%, but our costs of goods sold have plummeted. And that's what Netflix has experienced the last 90 days. And I think as a result, they are going to report just monstrous earnings tomorrow. And I think the stock goes above 600. And the stock, Netflix, is now going to be worth more than Disney or Comcast. And it's going to be one of the most valuable media companies in the world. And then I have about 20 predictions in between that. So, but those are two, and I'm happy to make predictions about. And by the way, I just want to be clear, I get this wrong all the time. Predictions for me aren't an effort to be right. It's an effort to catalyze a conversation. I think Walmart, you had your Janie on. I think Walmart, I don't know if this is a prediction. I think the best way to predict the future is to make it. I think Walmart should get into the business of testing. I think the killer app for Walmart Plus would be offering testing. They have the parking lots, the distribution, the capital, the logistical expertise. Testing has been one of the weak links. Well, actually, there's several weak links in our dipshit response to this virus. But testing, Walmart could play an incredibly important role where any parking lot in any Walmart, I think they have 5,500 locations, someone could get a rapid test. I think that would be incredible citizenship, and it would be something that Amazon would have a difficult time doing. So I think Walmart, my prediction, and this is more an aspiration, hoping that Doug is watching, is that Walmart gets into the business of testing to try and help us flatten and crush the curve.
All right, we'll have to see if that proves true. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Callie.
So now our show is over. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow when my colleague Devin Banerjee interviews the John Hancock CEO, Marianne Harrison, about financial security and leadership in a crisis. Thanks so much for joining us, Jamie, Scott, and all of our members in the stream.